Hello everyone, today I'm going to do the 14th video of my web development practical video series. Without further ado, let's go to our question list. Here in the question list you can see under day 2 is the question 4. I'm going to read the question first and let's review our code. All sales of the Super 2 market are done online and they run a website for those purposes. It was observed that there were several shortcomings in this site. The main error is the product uploading part on the website where the uploaded product cannot be viewed immediately. As a solution for this, it has been proposed to update that section of the website as follows. The main requirement is to load the product into the viewing area when the product is uploaded to the database by the user. Okay, here you can see there's a little sketch we can refer to use for designing our web page. Here on the top of the web page you can see there should be a product uploading area. That means we have to create a form to insert the details of the product. After that you can see in the bottom part or the lower part product viewing area. There's a product viewing area. In that part we can create a table to show the details of the product. Okay, here's the next part. Please note that the following information is required when uploading product. Okay, here are the requirements or details we need to store in our database to register a product. Product name, brand, quantity, price per unit, uploading date and expire date. Okay. And here's another requirement, should responsive for small, medium and large devices. Okay. Now we have to create a database and this design of our website, and it should be responsive. Okay. First I'm going to show you my answer, and let's insert a product and view that product, and after that let's review our code. Okay, here I'm going to go to the answer. This is the design I created to view these details, and I'm going to register a new product. Okay, let's register a new one. I'm going to show you how I validated these fields. You can see when I click on the add button without entering any data, it will show an error message, enter a product name. Okay, we have to enter the product name, so here's the first one. Okay, after that I'm going to click on the add button with only the product name inserted. Okay, here there's another error, enter brand name. You can see we cannot register a product without these details, so here's the brand. Okay, and we have to enter a quantity. You can see when I click on the add button again, enter quantity, there's another error. Okay, here's a quantity. Okay, here I am entering a number with floating points. You know the quantity must be in integers, because there are no any floating points when we are defining a quantity for product. So let's try to add this product. You can see we have to enter the price per unit. Okay, price per unit I'm setting it to 150 and set a expiry date. Okay, and let's add this product. You can see quantity must be integers and below 10,000. Okay, these are the rules we have to follow when entering a quantity. So I'm giving it an integer value, and let's add this product and see how this table, the table which showing our product, will change. Okay, here I add a product successfully. Here's the alert, product added, and I click on the OK button, and after that you can see our new product added real time into our table. Here's how the responsiveness of this web page works. Let me show you. When I'm changing the screen size, actually the screen width of this web page, it will change the design according to the screen size. So it will help it will show all the necessary details to the user according to the screen size. Okay, let me show you. When I'm changing the screen, you can see the design small itself, and also you can see when it's come to the mobile view, the design changed according to that one. And here you can see because there are many details in this table, I added a scrolling method to this table. Here you can see we can scroll this table and see all the data, and when I'm increasing the screen width, you can see that option disappears, because there's no need to scroll the table when there's enough space in the screen. Okay, here you can see this is the desktop view, and this is the tablet view, and here's the mobile view. Okay, that's how my web application works as a responsive application, and I done that part using the Bootstrap framework. Okay, you can see I not this one, here this one. You can see I linked the Bootstrap CSS file to this web page, and define what should be my design in the different screen sizes. You can see here's the small different screen size, and this is the medium screen size, and here's the large screen size. So that's how I done that part. Okay, that's how my application works, and let's review our code. Here we are in the index page. This is the index page. You can see this is a normal HTML page, and here are the input fields. You can see the product name, and here's the input field, and brand name, and here's the input field, and here you can see that product button, and after that you can see there's a table element, HTML element to show our table. Okay, I'm going to explain the code on the top with the let's review the code starting from the body tag. You can see there are two functions executing when the page load. You can see that's why I define the onload attribute to the body tag, and in that attribute you can see there are two JavaScript functions executing when the page loading. I will explain you how those functions execute, but before that I like to highlight you in these input fields. You can see I gave every field a unique ID. You can see in the product name there's an ID called PN, and in the brand name here another ID BN. Like that, all the input fields are ID'd. And after that you can see when someone click on this add button, here I added on click attribute to the add product button, and it will execute this JavaScript function get details. You can see that's the function that will execute when I click on this yellow button, that product button. And let's go to our code again. Now I'm going to review the JavaScript file. Okay, now we come to the JavaScript file. You can see on the top of this file, I created a bunch of variables, JavaScript variables, and entered or assigned the IDs, assigned the HTML elements in the index page using the ID I given it. Okay, here you can see there are 7 elements I inserted separately to different variables, and after that you can see here's the get details function. That's the function I told you earlier. It will execute when someone click on the add product button. Okay, let's review that one. Here you can see I created another set of variables and inserted the values using the variables I created earlier. Here in these variables, for an example, if we get the PN field, it's storing. You can see that those elements are stored in the variables I created earlier, and after that I call those elements using the variable name and assign it to a new variable. But the difference is here you can see there's a method called or keyword called dot value. That means it will store not the whole element, it will store only the values inside that element. In this case there's an input element stored in this variable. Okay, here I stored the values in those elements, the input elements, into separate variables. Okay, after that here you can see I created another variable called form and inserted a form object into that variable. We use form object. Actually I explained about this form objects in my previous videos, but if you didn't know, we use that form object to store to store details. If there are many details we have to store, so if we store all the details in this form, it's easy to control or do whatever we want using that object. Okay, here's the form object, and here you can see I append all the details into that very form object. Okay, after that here you can see I created a new variable called R and assign a new JavaScript object, a new Ajax object. You know what the Ajax object means. If you watch my previous videos, we use Ajax object to send requests to the server side without reloading the customers or clients current web page. There are two ways you can use the Ajax method. It will send the details to the server side without knowing the client, and also there's a native method. You can use a form submitting method in the index page in this page, but it will change the or it will reload the customers or clients web page, in this case this page, when you click on the add product button. But it's very annoying, so we are using the Ajax method. Okay, let's go to our code again. Here we are was in the JavaScript file, and here I created that object and inserted it or assigned it to a new variable. After that I'm going to skip this set of codes starting from line 24 to 30, and I'll have to explain these two ones. I will explain after we talk about the process.php file. Okay, now here you can see I added an open method to the Ajax object. Here you can see I called that Ajax object using the variable we created, the R variable. And here in the open method, here's the first one. I define what kind of a method I want to use to send this data into the server side. Okay, here you can see I use the post method, and there are two methods called get and post. In this case I use the post method. Okay, here's the destination. I define the destination. I want to send these details. Here a file called process.php, and that's the file I want to transfer this data, and that file, after that file executed, those data will be processed, and if the data is correct, it will store in the database. Okay, and after that, here I define here's a keyword called true. That means we are using the Ajax method. If you use the keyword false, that means you are using the Ajax method. I'm not going to explain the difference between Ajax and Ajax in this video. I will explain in a future video, but in this case we are using the Ajax method. That's why I use the keyword true. And after that, I in the next line you can see I assign another method called send to this Ajax object, and in that send object means if that code executed, the request to the server side will be sent. Okay, here we set up the what method we want to send, and what is the destination, and what's the technology we are using to send this request. And after that, here I command the Ajax object to send these details to the server side. And with the request, you can see I send the form object to the server side. That means it will send all the details I append to the form object when the request when the request made to the server side. Okay, that's the get details function works. It will extract the details out from the input fields and then send to the server side. Now let's talk about the server side file that will execute in the server side. I told you that because this process.php file, you can see there are no any design created using the HTML tags or HTML elements in this file. It will there are only if else ladders and if else conditions. Actually, the if else conditions and the connections to the database like that, all the processes will be executed in this file, and only this PHP, you can see on the top of this page there's a PHP script, and this PHP script only run in server side. That's why I told you we are sending the details to the server side. Okay, and in the top of the file, top of this process.php file, you can see I created a PHP variable called BEng and assigned a connection to the database. Here in this case we are using this database name, and here's the credentials to log into our MySQL server, and I use the object-oriented method to connect to that database in that database management system. In this case, the MySQL database management system. Okay. After that, you can see here's a if condition, if block, and here are the conditions that will check. Okay, is set post key. That will check if there's a value which will come as the in the name key, and if after that it will check again if there's a key, if the key value, actually the value of the name key is equal to pld. P@, means the product at. Okay, here in the JavaScript file you can see I append the details to the form object, and also I append another new data, its name key, and here's the value P@. Okay, so that means when we are sending this request to the server side, it will send these about product name, brand name, and other details, and also the key and the value P@. Okay, so when there's a value called key, when there's a name called key and its value is equal to P@, it will execute this part of the code, and if there's no such value, it will check the else if condition. Okay, here's the else if condition. You can see I checked again is set get key and get key equal to P search. That means it will check, we check if there's a name come to this file using the post method, and if there's not, it will check if a name called key will come in the get method. Okay, here I check that, and after that it will check the value which will come as in the get method is equal to P search. Okay, I will explain that here in the JavaScript file. I again use that to a different purpose, but in this case we are talking about the for now we are talking about the get details function. So that function only send the key and its value P@. Okay, that means it will execute this part of the code when that Ajax object requested to the server side. Okay, and here you can see after that, if this part of the code execute, it will create new set of variables, PHP variables, and store the values which will come to the server side in post method. Here you can see I inserted the product name and brand name into different variables, and after that here again another if else ladder will check, or if else ladder will execute. In this case we are calling the if else ladder. Actually this is a nested if condition, and here in the first one you can see it will check if the value in the Pn variable is empty. Pn means the product name. That means it will check if the product name input field is empty. So if there's if the product name field is empty, it will execute only this line of the code, and it will omit all the other codes in this page. It will only execute this one and output this code. In this case you can see there's a echo. Echo means it will print this or it will only output this text, enter product name. Okay, that's an error code. You can see that's an error code. That's the error code which will come when you, which will show when you, let me show you, left all the input fields and press the add button. You can see enter product name. That's an error code. So here you can see these are the validation part I done in my website, and here after that if there's a if the Pn value is not empty, it will check. It will go to the else if part. The next else if part, you can see it will check again if the Bn field is empty. Bn means the brand name, and it will check the check this input field. If that's empty, it will execute, or it will output only this code, and it's not empty, it will check the quantity is empty. Like that all the fields are validated in my site. You can see I like to highlight a important part here. I write a preg match pattern here. It's a pattern I used to check the quantity, and actually the value in the quantity input field. And here you can see it will check if the value is between 0 to 9, and it started from 1 to 10,000, and only a value which are in these parameters will be allowed, and if there's not, it will execute this error code. Quantity must be integers and below 10,000. Okay, I showed you that error code 2, and after that here another break match is checking the unit price. Okay, after that if all of these if else conditions are not met, that means there's no error in our there's no error of the details the client added. Okay, now if there's no errors, that means we can add these details to our database, because the product is a valid one. Okay, after that in the else part you can see I created another new variable. This part, the highlighted part, is used to get the real time, the real date of actually the current date when the product is registering. It will get the current date. Okay, here you can see I'm not going to explain a lot about this part of the code. It will create a date time object and store in a variable, and after that variable it will check here is my time zone, and it will store the time zone in a different variable, and it will calculate, it will change the date time in the server according to my time zone. Like that, those processes are done within these code lines, and after that it will store the current date in a new variable called date, and I inserted that date into my insert query. Here you can see I write an insert query to my database. This is the part we are registering the data to the server side. Okay, here this is a normal insert query. Insert into here. I want to insert this data into the product table, and here are the attributes in that product table. I'm going to insert this data, the product name, brand name, quantity, unit price, like that, and I inserted all the values inside these variables I created, and that will only execute if there's no errors in those values. Okay, after that you can see I executed the query using the database connection. Here dbmsc is the database connection we created when we are starting this file, and after that all the process is done, the insert process is done. It will execute, sorry, it will output this text product added. Okay, and that part is over. The product registering part is over. It will after this process it will output this part, this text, and it will send this output text with the response to the client side. You know, if you request to a file in the server side, always there will be a response to that request. Okay, now let's go to our index file, JavaScript file, and I'm going to explain this part of the code. Actually the code in the Ajax object, and here you can see after the data is here, while I'm creating the Ajax object, you can see I added already state change function to this object. Already state change means I explained this several times in my previous videos, but if you didn't know, when the AJAX object requesting to the server side, it will change its state. Approximately we can say that there are 4 main states that will change when the request is go to the client server side, and after the process is done, it will reach to the client side. There will be 4 state circle. So yeah, in the 4th state means the data of the process.php file, actually the output data of the process.php file is come to or reach to the client side. Okay, that's the state we want, because after the request is done, or the details of the input fields are sent to the database and processed and inserted into the database, or there's an error, it will output the error code or the success message, the registration success message to the server side, and now we are going to grab that data. For that, I checked if the state of the AJAX object equal to 4. That means the data is here, and after that I created a text variable. Actually, this is a variable. This is just a variable name. I created a new variable and named it text, and you can see I assign the response text of the AJAX object. That text is the outputted text in the process.php file will be sent to the server side in text form. So I assigned that text to this variable called text, and after that here I created an alert. It will create this alert this message. You can see this is the message which will show after this part, this code executed, and I inserted the text variable, actually the value in the text variable, which is the error code or the product registering success code. Okay, after that you can see I called another function. This function will be executed after this part. Okay, that's the whole process in the get details function, and that will register a product. Okay, now I explained this part of the web page, and now I'm going to explain this product showing part in my web page. Okay, for that let's go to the index page, and here you can see I created a table element to show these details. Okay, now I'm going to explain what are these SP function and the SP repeater function do. You can see these functions are called when the page is loading, and these are the functions that are responsible to show the details in this table, and also refresh the table or refresh the details in this table real time when we are adding any product. Okay, let's go to our code, and here I'm going to the JavaScript file, and here's the get details function. We explained that one. I explained that one, and let's go to these two functions. Here you can see there's the SP function, and here's the SP repeater function. SP repeater function is a simple function. It will just execute, or it will just call the SP function. SP repeater means it call or execute the SP function repeatedly. Here you can see here's the time I give it after 10 seconds. After this repeater function called, after every 10 seconds this SP function will call again and again. Okay, in the SP function, let's talk about the SP function. Here you can see it's another AJAX object and only the regex object is here, and the special part is I'm sending this request in the get method, and also you can see here is the name called key, and here's the value p search. I told you about this part when I'm talking when I'm explaining the process.php file, and all these data, these two, name and value, will be sent to the to the server side, actually to the process.php file in the in a get method. Okay, let's go to the process.php file again, and here you can see if there's no value which will come in the post method, and also the value is not equal to p add, it's checking if there's a value which will come in get method. Now we can you can remember we sent this key in get method, and that will check that. Okay, here we send a value called key in get method, and also the key the value of the name key is equal to p search. Okay, that means that will execute this part of the code and only this part of the code. Okay, here in the first one you can see I created a new variable, and I assign there's another query, an SQL query. Select asterisk means select every details or every attribute from product table. That means, let me show you in the Heidi browser. Here here's our database, and here are the details, so it will grab all the details when we execute that query. Okay, and I assign that query to a variable, and here you can see I executed that query using the DBMS connection, the connection we made it on the when we are starting that file. Okay, and the special thing about the about executing select query is every time a select query executed, there will be a result set, and you can see I created a new variable and assigned that result set into that variable, and after that here is another variable. It will store here is a little calculation. It will calculate the result, the number of rows in the result set. Number of rows means when the query executed, it will output a result set, but the result set will be in a table format. So there will be rows like this one. Here you can see these are the rows in that table, and I count how many rows are there in this result. For now there are, you can see there are 6 rows, and it will store that value number 6 in this SNOR variable. Okay, after that here you can see I close the PHP script and write a HTML element. You can see here's a tr tag. This is a part of the table. Here you can see I designed the table, actually the table data. In the process.php file, here you can see there's the table element, and we should insert the table rows in this table element. Now you can understand what I done here. I created the table in this process.php file and send these details or send this HTML tags in a text format to the client side. Okay, and here you can see there's a for loop. These are the main rows or the headings of our table: the product name, brand name, quantity. Let me show you. Here you can see the in the green row. Here's the green row. This is the headings. These are the headings: product name, brand, quantity, like that. Here they are, and after that again I started the PHP script, and here's a for loop. This for loop will execute. Here you can see I created a variable with the value 0, and every time the value is less than the SNOR. SNOR means the number of rows in the result. So that means that for loop will be executed same number of times to the number of rows in the result set. So let's review what are the commands that will execute when the for loop executing. Here I created another new variable called sData and assign result set, and here fetch assoc method. Fetch assoc method will do actually the purpose of the fetch assoc command is in the result set, the details or the outputted result will be stored in a table format. So when the fetch assoc function executed, let me show you, it will rip out the first row or first tuple of this row of this table, and then insert or create a associative array and insert the values inside these attributes combined to the attribute name. Okay, that's the fetch assoc function do, and every time this function executed, it will read the first record and assign to a associative array. Again, after the next round is executed in the for loop, it will rip out this part and then insert that to a new associative array. That's how this for loop works, and you can see I created another tr tag. Tr means a table row. I created a new table row in my table, and here I assign the table data. Table data means these are the table data. We can also say the columns. I created the columns and assigned the values using the names in the associative array we created. You can see sData pname. sData pname is the value inside this cell pname. When the fetch assoc function read this part, it will store this value combined to the attribute name, in this case the p name. Okay, that's how that part works, and you can see it will create the same number of rows using that for loop, and it will output at that output at these two table rows. Actually, there will be more than two table rows. After this for loop executed, there will be more than two rows. So it will execute. It will output all the table rows and send to the client side in text format. Okay. After the data is here, you can see I created another if state and check the state of the check whether the state of the Ajax object is equal to 4, and after that I store if the state is 4, that means data is here, the table elements is here, and I assign the table elements which are in text format to a new variable called text, and after you can see after that you can see table.innerHTML equal text. That means here I create here's a variable name. Here you can see in the upper part of this file with the input elements I assign a ID to the table element. Let me show you here. In the table element I assigned a ID called table, and I grab that element using that table ID and assign that element to the to a new variable, and I call that variable in here, and here's the command in a HTML. In a HTML means it will put anything we are typing in this part between the starting tag of the table element and the closing tag of the table element, which is this space. It will input any data we are assigning to this area. Okay, let's go to our the JavaScript file again. Okay, and you can see I assign the text value which will come from the server side as the output to the area between the starting tag of the table element and the closing tag of the table element. So it will insert these table rows inside this table element. Okay, and that will complete the table, and it will show the this table, and you can see when the page is loading, this table is created using the sp function, and sp repeater function will be also called. That means when the table loaded, it will load the table first time using the sp function, and after every 10 seconds it will refresh this page. It will refresh this table, not page. It will refresh this table after every times because of sp repeater function. Okay, and I like to highlight another part here. Back in the get detail function, you can see I after the alert, I again call the sp function. That's because after every time we register a product, it will refresh this table, so it will show our new product real time. So that's how my application works, and I think I covered all the parts of this code, and we completed the 4th question of the second day and also the 14th question, and I think that's it for this video, and let's see you in a next video, and thank you very much for watching.